Hello. Good morning. Many thanks for coming. I'm glad to be here as the second year in the stage. So many thanks, and thanks, Ricard, to think about me to stay here. And today we want to talk about infrastructure deployments as a GitOps methodology with ArgoCD HA and Crossplane. So here, the topics that we have here. So a little bit of presentation about me, about our company, and the next content. So who I am? I'm Pere Alcoberro. I'm the BMP Retail DevOps and Cloud Architect tech lead in Allianz Technology. I was here since the last 2 years. So I joined Allianz in September 2022 as a cloud architect for platform automation, together with Oliver, last year speaker with me. And well, my career was working in IBM, in service layers, and starting my career as a DevOps and cloud, because I have more knowledge about this, in Logicalis, Spain, and Actios. Here, if you want to connect in LinkedIn, you have here the QR, so feel free to connect. So let's speak about a little bit from Allianz Technology. So we are more than 13,000 employees over the world, 600 only in Spain. We have 30% of our people is female, so it's something that it's hopefully changing over this world. We have almost 70% of our colleagues working directly in IT, which is super great. The average age is super low, so only 36 years old. I'm older from this, but I'm reducing this average. And the 70% of Allianz total IT spending is with our technology brand. Almost who we are. So we are the IT service provider for Allianz, for the global group. What we are doing is making the end-to-end IT service provider for Allianz. And our purpose is not being another simply provider for infrastructure and for everything in Allianz. No, we want to be the backbone of the whole IT for Allianz. Then let's start with our talk. First of all, we started this journey working with lots of Terraform-based modules that we faced, as we told last year, which was super unmaintainable because all the complexity to have these modules was increasing every time. And also, the deployment was based always in Jenkins automated pipelines, so everything going as in the beginning. And we make a step forward on all of these, migrating all the pipelines in Jenkins to GitHub Actions for all the build processes, and moving all the deployment pipelines and processes to ArgoCD. And of course, we have another driver, moving all the Terraform-based infrastructure and models to Crossplane-based resources. And then the next step, that was going to Crossplane Kompositions for all our complex infrastructure to deploy, that we will tell later. First of all, a little bit of theory. What is GitOps? GitOps is an operational framework which is based and takes all the DevOps best practices and moving directly to the application development, such as version control, collaboration, CI/CD, and applies also in the infrastructure automation. There's more things, and we know that in GitOps, the open source GitOps tools, or the top open source GitOps tools, are Terraform, Pulumi, Crossplane as well, Bytebase, etc. Now, let's talk about our solution. What our key actors for our transformation, which was, of course, GitOps as one of the main actors, then Helm, because we are deploying everything as a Helm template, applications, and also infrastructure. And then we need a strategy. And these strategies are based on a tenant-based infrastructure. So in terms of complexity, if we need to go directly to this tenant strategy to avoid complex situations in terms of infrastructure deployment and then software deployment in this distributed way. Now, let's see how we planned the cross-plane configuration in our tool chain. Let's begin, first of all, in a tooling account. This tooling account provides all our tool chain that we have to provide all our infrastructure. This tooling account has, first of all, an EKS cluster. So we have all the tool chain based on Kubernetes. Then, in this EKS cluster, with another tool chain that we have, but let's speak about this configuration, we have the core setup of Crossplane with our app-bound AWS providers. These providers has or allows us to create infrastructure in an easy way, and we don't need to maintain core bases as, I don't know, maybe one load balancer. We don't need to create the Crossplane module only for certain topics that providers makes our life easier. Then, with these providers, we are creating some CRDs. This is the key, because all Crossplane infrastructure creates CRDs. These CRDs allows us to bootstrap our infrastructure in an easy way, and also reducing the complexity in order to deploy, not to create, because create infrastructure, create CRDs, create compositions, it's heavy. But then, when we need to deploy them, it's an easy-peasy task. So less variables, less things to be careful. So has a lot of good things. And then the provider config. Provider config allows us to connect different accounts, different target accounts, in order to have all the role-based configuration and all the IAM stuff to be able to make the bootstrap of our infrastructure. In our case, for example, here, an ECS, an RDS, whatever. With this connectivity, we don't need to make more things. Let's talk about compositions. A composition, it's a way to create our own infrastructure code based on Kubernetes configuration, Kubernetes YAML file. Here we have an example, a super easy example, to create an S3 bucket using the Crossplane function pageant transform. So yes, here we have the mode pipeline, which creates the patch and transform to add all the resources that we need to add for our composition. Because, yeah, this is only an S3 bucket. But in our own tenancy, we need to create more and more and more resources. In our case, to deploy the infrastructure that I will be presenting later on, we have almost 10,000 lines of code in terms of adding resources and resources. Here, our tenant. In terms of retail, we are moving from a Kubernetes 100% infrastructure that we have all the applications deployed there to a heavy bedrock infrastructure, or sorry, a heavy bedrock composition in terms of microservices, which is not a microservices, it's a heavy service with only one Docker image, which allows to have all the backend structure there. In that case, we don't need to still maintain heavy Kubernetes clusters to keep only one service. In that case, we are migrating directly with a serviceless configuration or mentality to move our Kubernetes to ECS. In this ECS, we have 3 different tenants. One for the cluster, which allows as I said, the cluster capacity, the load balancers, the listeners, the security groups, log groups, and KMS. This is one tenant. The other tenant for the service with the target group, listener rule, the record, roles, and secrets. And that has another composition. And the third one is only the task definition. In that case, which allows us to isolate the infrastructure deployments in the 3 different tenants in order to not affect the complete infrastructure in our deployments. If we are changing something in the task definition, we don't need to make any new refresh in the tenant of the cluster or in the service. And of course, in between, the same. Now, when we create our compositions, this composition needs to be installed somewhere. In that case, in our tooling cluster. And this bootstrap, it's using our ArgoCD. We install directly the composition as a composite service inside Argo, or composite application. And voila, we have the CRD for this composition. In that case, it's a easy peasy OIDC roles bootstrap for another tooling, because if I need to present the bootstrap for the complete ECS cluster, it's super heavy to see here. Too many things. Now let's pass to the deployment itself. In that case, I missed one step here. So the first step, it's to present you how it looks, the Helm templating for the object that we create with the composition. But I passed through this step to show, OK, with only these variables, I'm able to deploy the entire tenant for the ECS cluster in that case. So this is simplifying a lot the way to deploy new tenants for different accounts, different OEs, different countries, etc. But of course, in this tool chain, we have a key actor, which is ArgoCD. What happened here? We have here three different flavors to deploy ArgoCD. One is ArgoCD Core, which only provides the headless mode, so only for directly typing the commands to this API and making it super heavily. The ArgoCD multi-tenant, which is the most common installation for ArgoCD. But this installation has limitations, which is the applications. Only 80 applications per tenant. When something is working, when something it's being adopted for a company like us, the growing and growing of applications inside our Argos, it's super heavy. So in our case, we need to start splitting that because the number of applications, it's killing us. Because of course, we need to be aware that every composition is an application. Every deployment of any tenant is an application. Then the applications itself to deploy in other Kubernetes clusters or whatever. And then the root applications. Because if we use the root applications strategy, in every time that we are deleting an application from our Argo, automatically Argo needs to start again the creation from scratch of this application, because we didn't delete it, the root application itself. Then, this is a great capability of Argo. But we only can bootstrap the half capacity of all the applications that we can handle with Argo. Then another solution, which is ArgoCD HA. ArgoCD HA, we can handle 2,000 applications, which is great. And also, it's the flavor recommended by Argo for productive environments. Of course, it's not a key solution for everything, because we still hear a limitation. A heavy, not so heavy like this or this, but we still have a limitation, and also other limitations. As we want, or sometimes we need to isolate some ArgoCD installations in order to avoid conflicts or avoid disruptions between environments, tenants, infrastructure, and applications. Here, this is a briefing to how it works, the architecture for ArgoCD HA. So the only modifications in order or to make it different between HA and multi-tenant flavor, it's to have the application. It's working. Oh, my laser here. The application controller, the controller set, and the repo server as a replica set. And then we have a shard radius HA solution embedded in the proper ArgoCD Helm chart to use as a cache for all the application or for all the storage used by ArgoCD. So we have as well the PVCs or all the volume data for Argo, and also a Redis HA solution to keep this working. Then let's speak about what was hard in this journey. What issues was killing us in that way? Let's start for Crossplane. Crossplane, as I showed you before, we are using providers. And these providers has a versioning. Of course, everything needs to be upgraded because AWS provides new functionalities, new ways to work, and the provider allows us to use it. But every time that we are going almost 2 or 3 versions growing, has breaking changes. And these breaking changes affect directly our compositions and starts breaking in somewhere. And it's super hard to find, okay, what is the breaking changes for this provider, these ones? What breaks? Who knows? Providers also can break completely the Crossplane setup. 2 weeks ago, in our team, we faced a super heavy issue with a glue provider from Outbound. This provider was needed by business to make something. I don't know. I don't remember what. Then, when we started deploying the provider, everything good. And we started seeing all our infrastructure deployments in red in ArgoCD. And it's, OK, what happened? What is the last commit in our provider's config solution? Only one provider? OK. What is the issue? Oh, nice. One provider creates a WebSocket. That WebSocket blocks the Crossplane configuration for all the infrastructure. Come on. And as well, to delete or to clean up all this setup, we need to delete all the CRDs, all the finalizers, making the patch of all the resources that is killing these managed services. So it was a completely headache. It was terrible. That one. ArgoCD. The application number increases without control. Yeah, Argo, it's cool. Argo looks better than a pipeline with a Jenkins pipeline deploying a Helm. It's easier to share the control to the developers to check the pod logs, whatever. But if we are creating applications inside our Argo finally increases all the average or all the load. And we need to think about, OK, what we are doing. And how to handle everything, because when Argo is stuck, everything is stuck. Applications and infrastructure. Then, when we increase the number of applications, the application controller starts being stuck. So, in that case, we can make 2 things. An emergency kubectl delete pod and restart of the pod of the application controller, or creating a sanity restarts or planned sanity restarts of the application controller to avoid these kind of issues. Then we have another blocker, which is the composition itself. The learning curve to start working with compositions, it's super heavy. It's much heavier to start creating new models for Terraform. Because so if we start working with the patch and transform functions or other kind of functions inside Crossplane, it's super heavy for one which is starting to create infrastructure as code. Then CRDs. CRDs are super hard to manage. Why? Because the versioning and also the finalizers. Every time that we are making one change in our compositions, the CRD, it's modified. Then, when all the infrastructure that we already created starts adopting the new version of the CRD, which is an uncontrolled upgrade of our platform. Sometimes it's great, but sometimes no. Because if something breaks something, all the infrastructure is being affected for this little change. Then, the managed infrastructure of Crossplane. Again, it's super hard to manage finalizers. So every time that we need to make I don't want to say destroy, recomposition or redeployment of the infrastructure, it's a mess to make manual patching of this infrastructure to force to be recreated from scratch. It's super heavy. And also, it's super hard to troubleshoot a global issue because it's not easy to know in what resource it's being affected for something, which is not really, really good. But yeah, here we have lesson learned and global takeaways to get here. One of those is we need to split infrastructure from applications and environments. Why? Easy. One little change affects too much if we have everything centralized in one single tooling system. Sorry. For this, to make this splitting, we need to plan. For this planning, we need to have in mind which development environment is the new productive environment. What I said is, or what I mean is, our dev environments are more critical than a productive environment. With this, we need to enforce that dev cannot be down anytime, because if not, we are blocking our developers. In that case, all our tests, in order to manage infrastructure, upgrade providers, upgrade compositions, needs to be in an isolated environment, which increases costs and maintainability. Because, of course, we need to handle one tooling for dev or production, productive environments, and then another for testing. Maintain. We should have all the tool chain upgraded, because if not, every time that we are missing capabilities in our future. So we need to keep upgraded all our tool chain and code. If not, we cannot maintain it. And then the continuous learning. So to manage this, to handle all the infrastructure and handle all our deployments, the strategies are updated every time to time. So we need to keep growing and learning about strategies to how to manage this. So if not, we will still typing Terraform stuff. And also Jenkins, which is not great. And last but not least, we are hiring. If someone is interested in to join us on working with tools like this, please discover our opportunities. And many thanks.
You have many questions, Pere, so.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing, many people are doing it, so apparently. Can you keep it low, please? OK, so let's try to do most of them. Let's see. So the first one that many people voted is that if you evaluated using the Terraform Kubernetes operator before going Crossplane, and if you did, why chose Crossplane?
Well, we evaluated it, and we tried several ways to deploy infrastructure. And here we have the driver about one of the CNCF board members inside the company, which pressures us to use Crossplane and Kompositions to work with that. So we have here a little bit of pressure from the CNCF.
OK. And
to be honest.
Did you try Flux CD or just went Argo and never looked back?
We never looked back Argo. So we need to standardize one tool set or one tool chain. It's a large company. It's good to have the chance to explore different tool chains to make the same things, but we need to go from 4 standards.
Yeah, and a similar question, but this is more about moving out from Terraform. What were the biggest complexities from moving out from Terraform? Yeah, well, many, no? But
well, here
how many time do you have, no?
Yeah, we have different topics here. So one of those is we need to choose one thing: migrate to another solution, or making a rethinking and recreating all our Terraform strategy, because it was completely unmaintainable. We need to try once, and we decide to modernize it. That's simple.
No, that's fine. So then some others are asking about compliance, right? So what advices can you give to people? Because obviously you are an insurance company, so you go through compliance quite a lot. Even your presentation went through compliance, you told me. So what advices could you give them to ensure that everything is encrypted in transit, everything is encrypted? And any advices, generally speaking, if you...
Yeah, and here we can make another talk about that. Because, of course, compliance allows us to create this infrastructure. Because, for example, to deploy infrastructure here in Allianz, we have a concrete group, which is called FCP or ADP, which provides to all the teams, for example, to deploy Kubernetes. In our case, we created our own solution based on ECS, but making the bypass from this team. And of course, this team was saying, oh, what happened? This is my stuff, not yours. OK, let's see. Let's discuss. The maturity of our solution was better than theirs. And of course, that allows us to create the whole life cycle and to, of course, pass all over the compliance things about security, reliability, and passing through the ARC42 membership, which all the architecture's best tools or best ways to make things, and allows us to being using our solution. So the journey was really hard as to staying here.
Okay.
In that step.
They're asking if there is a way to check the drift, if there is, between the cloud provider and the config, the CRS config. I guess it's similar to the Terraform plan, no? Or
exactly.
Kind of, yeah.
So unfortunately, it's
not yet, no? Or
not yet.
Okay.
It's
yeah, okay.
Try and error.
So they're asking if, since Crossplane expands the artifacts in the cluster, if you make backups of the etcd, well, not really, no, because you don't manage that, no?
We don't manage that because we are using EKS.
Yeah.
So the etcd, it's managed by AWS.
They're asking if you configure the ArgoCD apps with automatic prune, or what's the other? Yeah, because I use Argo, but that's checkbox. I don't remember.
No, it's not. It's the automatic prune. It's not set it up. If we want to prune, we need to set it to click on directly when we delete it, or when we are recreating or resyncing the application.
Then another one is asking, okay, you mentioned unexpected breaking changes in Crossplane, and apparently they use Semver, or they don't follow that, maybe, no? Or
well,
so.
It's not the breaking changes in Crossplane itself. It's about the provider, which the heavy breaking changes are more based on the app-bound provider and not only for Crossplane.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you had this issue that we talked about, that the apps got stuck. If you consider splitting Argo into two different Argos, one for infra and one for the cluster, and probably yes, no?
No.
And you did, no?
we currently are working in that. In our case, we are working in the ArgoCD multi-tenant strategy. So we are starting creating and bootstrapping the ArgoCD HA for our future ArgoCD. And this ArgoCD will be one instance for only infrastructure, for the different tenants that we are creating, and then another for the applications, completely isolated, because if not, we are hanging.
And even then you can have blockage, yeah.
Of course.
And then the final one, in ArgoCD, how do you manage image tags with Argo Image Updater? I have not used that. Or how do you increase the image tag versions when you deploy new?
We are making manually. So the image tag, finally, it's about the Crossplane composition version that we are splitting up. So the versioning is in Git, not in Crossplane itself.
Okay. Okay, so I think that covers most of them. Sorry if I missed one because it's like my phone.
No.
Okay, you'll be around, no, I guess? You'll be around for a while, at least after lunch for some time.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
You can go bother them, like the whole Alliance team is here. So, all right, thank you very much, Pere.
And thanks for the Alliance.